Check Podcasts.
Our Mic Check conversation today focuses on tourism in Greater Victoria and what is being done to get our U.S. travelers back into this region. One of the reasons U.S. visitors are so important is that they spend more than Canadians when they're here. But the reality is, with COVID restrictions, we lost that market during the pandemic. And now, work is underway to get U.S. visitors and their wallets back to Greater Victoria. We asked Paul Nursey, the CEO of Destination Greater Victoria, and Victoria Dyson, the Director of Sales and Marketing for the Fairmont Empress Hotel, to sit down with us in studio for a wide-ranging interview about the tourism sector today and what is being done to get this extremely important industry back to pre-pandemic levels and better. We hope you enjoy this conversation. I think, Paul, I'll start with you. We've chatted a few times since COVID throughout the entire pandemic. I think a good jumping off point is maybe where Greater Victoria's market is today. Have we fully recovered from the pandemic? Are we halfway there? Where is the market at?
Yeah, Joe, that's a great question. And I'm going to give a bit of a cop-out by saying it depends. But I'm going to kind of segment it a little bit. Our accommodation sector and a couple of other sectors in 2022 had a tremendous revenue year in terms of recovery, largely from the domestic Canadian market. And the meetings and the conference business, and to a certain degree the sports business, came back sooner than expected. You know, we had rebooked conferences and meetings, but we didn't know how many delegates would attend because of all the uncertainties of Omicron. There was a tremendous desire to meet and convene, so a really fast recovery. But it's not a diversified market. You know, like every type of business, you want to have a different selection of source markets and different customer groups, and that builds resilience. So right now we're strong but vulnerable, if that's a bit of an oxymoron in a way, or a contradiction. Right?
Give us an example of how we're strong but vulnerable.
You know, in Canada, there's 11 international source markets on the leisure side that represent 93% of the business. But right now, we only have 2 or 3 that are really firing. There's pent-up demand in the Canadian market. We're seeing good recovery from the United Kingdom, Australia, U.S. We're taking some steps there. But we have, still not all of our U.S. air links have recovered. You know, we only have 1 flight a day from Seattle where we used to have 7.
That's a huge hit.
A huge hit. We're down about 300,000 flight seats a year out of the United States, and that will take time to come back as the U.S. market comes back. So we're very reliant on our ferry services in the interim. So again, that's an example of, my job is to look at the whole strategic frame of our region, South Vancouver Island, and develop a plan to execute against it, and I have less choices right now.
In Victoria, though, the American traveler, and I think this is key for people listening, that is a huge part of Victoria's market. I think 20%, something like that, a quarter or something like that?
16 to 20% of total volume, but the important part is they spend 70% more per person than a Canadian traveler.
So someone from Toronto is not spending as much as someone from Seattle, generally.
Generally speaking, statistically research-driven, because they don't need as much help. You know, if they're visiting friends, they may cook a bit more at home, or maybe not do as many tours or that type of stuff. It's not that they're valued any less. We're very grateful for our Canadian guests, and many of them were splurging last year because they were coming out of COVID, and we just can't rely on that to continue. So that's why the American visitor is strategically so important, because that's where the profit for our small businesses lies. And 2 in 5 Victorians Victoria family rely on the visitor economy. So, it's great that we had a good year last year. We had a really good, solid bounce back year. But our next step is to get that U.S. market back.
And we will talk about how we're trying to get that market back. But Victoria, I want to bring in you in here. Same question. I mean, in terms of where things are at compared to where they were pre-COVID at the Fairmont Empress, how are things going? I mean, everybody knows that during the pandemic, hotels were just decimated. I know a handful of people who were laid off during that time. It was a very tough time for hotels. So have things recovered? Have they fully recovered? Where is that at?
Similar to what Paul was saying, it depends on what you're looking at and what lens you're really focusing in on. We're not back completely to where we were. We had a phenomenal year last year because of exactly what Paul was talking about, that pent-up demand with the Canadian consumer. And we loved the people that were in our backyard and coming and really supporting our community through some really tough times. in the recent, probably in the last 6 months, we've really seen some strength coming back. We're really starting to see people coming back, wanting to be in the hotels, spending money, wanting to be in restaurants, dining out, looking for different options, looking for experiences. And so we're super thankful for the local market, but as Paul was alluding to, we really need to try to get back to the U.S. consumer, to be diversifying the portfolio, to really be looking at having it balanced so that we're not just all focused on Canadians or all of Americans, but that we have lots of different variety that's here.
One of the things that happened during the pandemic is that our friends to the south, they continued to travel. And here in Canada, we had a lot of restrictions. Traveling was very difficult, and we definitely said to our friends to the south for a long period, hey, we're closed, don't come here. How much did that hurt the average American traveler? Because they were continuing to travel. They just weren't coming to Victoria. So are we still dealing with the fallout from that?
Yeah, and I would use a bit of a softer word because we understand why those messages and restrictions were put in place. I would say it's a hangover. Last year, for example, a real practical example, we hosted Deuce Days, a beloved local event, and we had car clubs that we had to have a lot of conversations with in the United States market. And even small barriers like the ArriveCan app, which we thought was just kind of no big deal and part of being a responsible Canadian, was a real challenge to our American guests because some of them just didn't even have smartphones. They were older and drove hot rods, and we had car clubs cancel because of that one friction point. So it's going to take a couple of years to get over that. The other thing that's really interesting is just like we discovered different parts of Canada in terms of travel, our American customers discovered parts of the United States that they had never been to before. You know, research demonstrates places like Montana, Idaho, the Rockies in the United States, the Gulf states where they have beautiful beaches, had record years. And these are kind of secondary markets in the United States, not the New Yorks, the LAs, the Disneylands, the Floridas, but those secondary markets. That's who we're now competing with. So we now have a broader competitive set, and we have to win back those customers who discovered something new in their own backyard.
How are we getting those Americans back? Is it as simple as commercials on King 5 and Como, or is it a bus ad?
Yeah.
I'd like to actually talk about
the strategy.
The strategy.
Yeah. So listen, I love mass communications. We're all in the communications business, so there is definitely a lot of that.
And does it work, Paul? Does that stuff work?
It does. It's proven to work. But I'm going to back it up a little bit. I had a lot of time to sit and think in the second half of 2020, and I had, regrettably, because our revenue went down 96% in Q2 of 2020, I had to lay off most of my staff to go from 46 employees down to 6 and part-time. So rebuilding was different, and one of the big choices we made was to engage through an RFP process the largest integrated marketing communications agency in the world specializing in travel, and they're based in the United States. They're United States experts, and so our PR, our destination PR, is now run out of a Los Angeles office, and it's doubled our effectiveness with the same investment or less. Wow. Because they're experts. So a bit of a controversial move, because I moved some of my supplier business from local agencies into the United States, but I need that in-market expertise, at least as we recover here. And so I need that scale. I need that media buying power. So that's one side, is the public relations side, to integrate into the massive U.S. media market. The way a place like Victoria does it is largely through earned media and that type of stuff. We do paid marketing primarily in Seattle and San Francisco, but the other piece that's really important is the meetings and conference market.
Right.
And
that's bounced back a little bit.
In Canada, for sure.
Okay.
But just like the leisure market in the United States, we need to cut new trails in the forest, shall we say, in the meetings market. It's a fresh new market for us. We have someone in San Francisco beating the bushes there, getting leads, and positioning us as a kind of a boutique meetings destination. It's going well so far.
What I find fascinating about this industry is that, and especially your role, Paul, is that I do find that in many regards you're at the mercy of the city itself and the province. And sort of to get people here, you need some help. You need some draws. You need a Butchart Gardens. Yep. You need, whatever it may be. Yeah. Do you feel like there's enough here to draw people in? And if there's not, What do we need? What's missing in this market? And Victoria, you can get in here too if you want, because you talk to guests all the time down at the Empress. I mean, is there one or two things that would really help in terms of getting people here?
Yeah, a couple things. So first of all, fortunately, we've got a great brand. You know, Condé Nast Travelers Readers Poll just ranked us number 2 small city in the world and number 3 city in the world, and that's a big honor, punching above our weight. So we don't have a lack of interest. I'd say, you know, we did have some challenges through the pandemic, and we lost some services, and it will take some time for the private sector to step in. The first and foremost thing that we need to happen here in Victoria is ride-sharing services, not only for the customers, but also for our employees. We have employees that work early mornings and late nights, and there is not enough options for them to get home or to and from work. And also our customers, American customers and elsewhere, just expect a brand like an Uber or a Lyft. You know, they've got it on their app. These kind of local companies are great, but it just doesn't cut it for them. So to not be a backwoods, we need to have those services.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I think we're at a point now, and maybe Victoria, you can comment on this. I think we're at a point now where the fact that we don't have Uber and Lyft, it is doing more harm than good. I mean, for a while there, it was, look, I mean, this is still the case. Let's support our taxi industry. But I think that people are coming, and you're right, getting off a plane, getting off a boat, opening up their app and going, what the heck?
Yeah.
And it doesn't make them want to come back.
It changes people's perception of us as a world-class destination and not having that service that's there, because it's just expected nowadays to be having that. And so I think it surprises people in a negative way for the city. So I think that, you know, to Paul's point, it's really important to have just that basic communication tool to get around the city, how you choose to want to do it.
How often does that come up in your lobby with guests, concierge, you know, front desk?
Yeah, I think that when they go outside, they're immediately walking out. You know, having been in the United States for a few years, I have seen people just walk out and boom, the cars are there. It's they're in control of their own time in the city, and this is where they're a little taken aback as they're walking out, trying to look to see where they can get an Uber. And now, obviously, we have the taxis that are out front, which is great, but it's not on their terms.
And also, the taxis don't help people with those longer commutes. Getting out to the peninsula to go to Butchart Gardens, if you're going the Malahat Skywalk, that's where those Ubers really help. Because the thing is, it's a population thing. If a taxi driver picks someone up downtown, takes someone to the Malahat Skywalk, what are the chances that they're going to get a ride back right then, right? Yeah. We need the flexibility of a ride-sharing service.
What these apps provide at scale is consent. You have a driver that's consenting to take the ride. The customer has put in, you know, where they're going, and then there's a electronic match that's made. There's no risk of misunderstanding between the customer and the driver. You know,
you're totally right.
Yeah,
it is consent. You're totally right.
And so I want to go to the Malahat Skywalk, and there's different options to get to the Malahat Skywalk. We have shuttle services and other things, but you know what this provides is mutual consent to engage in a business transaction, whether it be a sedan or a larger vehicle or what have you. And, you know, it is a core expectation. The other thing is, again, we lift the curtain a little bit when, you know, Victoria's team or my team or others respond to requests for proposals for meetings and conferences. There's an expectation, like, you know, what are your transportation options from the airport? You know, and right now we can only put taxis. And no, there's a shuttle that's a different option, but is no longer there, and ride sharing is not there. So
that is a red flag that
meeting planners look at when, so...
Wow.
We're getting close, though. I know that there's 2 applications with the Passenger Transportation Board, but I think, you know, we don't want to make this all about ride sharing. But
no, I know, but I didn't think about that, Paul. When you brought that up, that wasn't even on my radar.
In terms of product gap, I would say that's our #1 priority.
Okay. You are planning or have planned a 10-year master plan for Destination Greater Victoria. Is it finished? Is it complete? And can you talk about it?
No, just started.
Just started,
yeah,
okay.
And we wanted to do this in 2019, 2020. And then, of course, COVID disrupted that. So we're picking up that project again. And why we do this is we get government and industry and other partners together to share about a vision. We research with customers. We research with stakeholders. So that when things like an official community plan process come up, and Victoria will be doing their official community plan, or Saanich or any of the other municipalities, we have, you know, kind of a consensus-built tourism plan to share. so that the medium and long term plans of the city are very much taken into consideration, and it's gone through a very robust process that we can all rally behind.
Do you know where you want Greater Victoria to be in 10 years? Can you share some of the goals, things you'd like to accomplish?
I'm a CEO and I report to a board and committees. I have my own personal vision, but so far in the process, I think what's really kind of coming out so far is that our waterfront, and it's no surprise, really is a strategic asset. And we know there's conversations about, other port cities, whether that be Sydney, Australia, or whether that be what Baltimore has done with their waterfront. And
what has Baltimore done with their waterfront?
They've put attractions like the Rock and Roll Museum. They've made it very active with lots of food and beverage and patio options, pedestrian friendly.
Hey, we're getting a barge.
We are getting a barge with a spa,
which I do think is going to be very popular. I do think it's going to be popular.
Not only that, and our friends at the City of Victoria, when they're taking development applications, for example, the Northern Junk building, they're making sure that the walkway gets built, right?
And we need to finish that.
Yeah, and same with the Belleville terminals. That walkway, how do we animate around that? I go back to Sydney, Australia. There's a place called the Tram Sheds where old trams used to go get worked on, and now it's like a foodie scene, right, where producers come, and so really bringing life to the waterfront. So that's one theme that's come out. Some other themes around agritourism and things, and it's very early. We'll certainly release it when it's ready to go, but during our first couple rounds of import, it's really been being purposeful and deliberate about leveraging the number one asset that we have, which is our iconic inner harbor, right? Yeah. So it's been fun so far.
Victoria, when you were at the Fairmont Seattle, was Victoria on Seattle minds? Did they know that they had this wonderful Canadian harbor city to the north? And was it a destination? Was it easy to convince people to go, to jump on the Coho or the Clipper?
Absolutely. I think that's one of the beautiful things about Seattle and where Victoria is that the Clipper connects it, and there is a lot of connection. If you look at the Clipper, it's all about Seattleites coming up to Victoria. It's not necessarily about people from Victoria going down to Seattle. So people in Seattle definitely knew about Victoria. Maybe I'm a little bit biased because I live there, but I'm also from Victoria.
Yeah.
So I paid very close attention to that, and myself traveled quite a bit up here on the various transportation options from the Clipper to the Coho to the BC ferries. And so understanding how important transportation is to the islands, even for something that is close as Seattle, having those options versus just needing to go up and drive across the border and then take BC ferries is really important for Victoria. Any
insight on aviation bouncing back?
We think by the end of this year and into early next year, things are going to look better. We're in conversations. I think this summer there's going to be a lot of Canadian low-cost carriers in the mix. But as we plan for next year, the U.S. carriers are already looking at us for next summer.
Don't you think that's a good thing, those low-cost Canadian carriers? Because my American friends, when I talk to them, they've been, and when you lived in the U.S., I'm sure you can attest to this, they've been all over the United States of America because it's cheaper to travel within the U.S. And I think that's a beautiful thing because I think it connects the country. If I wanted to fly to Toronto or Halifax right now, it's going to cost me a fortune.
Yeah.
But I do think from a national perspective, if there's a way to have those low-cost carriers, I think it's just going to have people crisscrossing the nation and bring the entire country together. I really wish we had that.
It's coming. I'll offer a comment, maybe turn over to Victoria. So we have Flair, Swoop, Lynx, Jetlines. So it almost reminds me of the mid-'90s when we had, Greyhound Air and Roots Air and WestJet was up and coming. And there's going to be a fight, and some of them are going to make it and some of them are not. But more competition is always a good thing, and they move market. So are you seeing that coming through in your reservations a little bit?
Yeah, I think that, being on an island, it's so critical for us to have those services coming in because we've got to get people here. And when you've got a little bit more competition, that's excellent because I think everybody's paying a little bit more attention to it. And that also allows people to think about traveling a little bit more because they can see if there's a deal here or there's an airline here, because that's the first step is the transfers, trying to get to the destination. So, I'm all for a little bit more competition.
I just think that if we had those low-cost carriers coming to Victoria, that is a huge win for our region because we are the type of city that I think people might not go to if there's any sort of barrier, but if it makes sense, they'll come. We'll skip everybody else on that list.
And you know what? Our airport has done very well with the Canadian low-cost carriers. So this is summer 2023 is the year of or we call them ULCC, ultra low cost carrier, the domestic one, and we hope that 2024 is going to be the U.S. carrier. So we're doing the groundwork this year to rebuild that demand profile with the U.S. market.
Any concerns, Paul, and I'm kind of putting you on the spot here, but any concerns with the cruise industry? You don't think there's a threat that we could see the industry rolled back in any way?
I think, this is just my perspective.
Yeah.
We had to stare losing the cruise industry in the face about 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, when the Alaskan legislatures made their moves to bypass us. And then all of a sudden, the cold, stark reality of losing that massive economic generator, vibrancy to our downtown core, was something that we had to contemplate as a community. And, political leaders who weren't necessarily lined up in support of cruise were the ones that ended up, after they received really good briefings, advocating for our industry, not only in Ottawa, but also in Washington, D.C. So I think, we have to build back right, and I think we're being very conscious on that on the sustainability front. But I think, you don't know what you got until it's gone. And in 20 and 21, a lot of it was gone. And I think, we need to earn it. And there's always risk in everything we do. So we have to be very mindful.
Before we get to some final thoughts, I have to ask you, Victoria, about the Fairmont Empress. The hotel has never looked better. It's gorgeous inside and out. I know that there's some people that miss a few elements, but I just think that it is modernized. It looks sharp, and it's been a good change.
Well, thank you. Certainly, the Empress is Victoria's hotel. It is. We are, and are very proud to be Victoria's center of the harbor, where we want to be the center for the locals to be coming from. Constant ideation that's coming out of the hotel for our locals, whether it's lunch on the lawns or obviously our afternoon tea, but there's more to that. There's live music nightly in the bar. We're trying to constantly activate so that we're bringing the locals in during the off season, but we're also welcoming them in high season when they've got their relatives and friends that are coming in. So it's really important for us to be relevant. We're although the renovation happened, we're renovating again. We're expanding the Gold Lounge. I mean, I think it really goes back to what we were talking about attracting people into the city. We need to build on that curiosity that Paul and his team have created, so that people are curious to be coming not only to Victoria, but coming into downtown, coming into, whether it's on Government Street or into our hotel or going into the legislature buildings. Create that curiosity so that people are going, what's going on there? What I need to go. And that's whether they're down in the United States, whether they're in Toronto, because I think that there's a lot of really positive things that are happening in downtown. And we love to be a part of it. We love to be staying current and offering new things here at the Empress in downtown.
I don't know if there's a better spot in the city to sit on a veranda and have a cold drink by a warm fire than on the veranda at the Empress Hotel. I mean, that is pretty good.
It's
well, growing up as
it is world class. It
well,
is
we
world
are
class.
world class.
Yeah,
The city is, the hotel is, and as a little girl growing up here, I felt like I arrived when I was sitting on the veranda having a cocktail looking out in the inner harbor.